So for those of you watching who have colleagues who can't view the Zoom stream, albeit we do have a full cap now, so we can, as many people can join the room as they want. I am going to post now the link to the YouTube stream that you're welcome to distribute out to other contacts. So for those of you watching who have colleagues who can't view the Zoom stream, albeit we do have a full cap now, so we can, Graham, the numbers are starting to rise as people log in.
Okay, good. Yeah, it's been interesting that I've been running some training sessions and presentations in New Zealand and in Australia over the last week or so, and the acceptance and the engagement in some of the sessions has been fantastic. Mm. For a long time we've talked about doing it, and the face-to-face still seems to be the pick, but now that the world has presented us with this situation, we have to take the advantage of it and make sure that our training, our communication with our people, and our business is operating, and we have to, I suppose, really embrace technology now and make it work. And I'm certainly getting some good feedback.
Absolutely. Right, just kicking off. We'll just be kicking off in a moment there, everyone. We do have the very lovely comment from Roger Stevens to you. Hey, Graham, shine that head.
Yeah, he's never short of a smart answer that, or a smart question, that boy.
And Paul Cross has said some businesses might change the way they operate in the future with now knowing this technology.
Oh yeah, and I'll probably start with the first comment is, just relax. Don't be too hard on yourself as you start to understand it and learn it.
Sorry, everyone, we're just finalizing just a couple of technical details, and we'll be up and running any second now. Just putting the video live on the AutoTalk website, but as the event has kind of just kicked off, it's proving to be very popular, making the website run just a little bit slow. Okay. Right, let's get started.
Okay, welcome.
We've still got the numbers are still climbing, but that's okay. We'll get through the introductions first. Thank you everyone for joining the second of our AutoTalk Talks dealer professional development sessions. These, as we've said before, they were kind of always coming, but we decided with the massive change the industry is facing during the COVID-19 issues, that it was a great time to really push this forward and do it in a way that allowed people to share their strategies and technologies and ideas as to how we can better operate in the COVID-19 world. And so we're now on to this. Now, our first session the other day was fantastic. It was with the team from Mark and Autoplay, talking about lead management. That video is still available live on the available on the AutoTalk website and available on our Automedia Group YouTube channel on YouTube. Today's session, of course, we have the fantastic Graham Taylor-Edwards, who's a very renowned sales trainer, speaking to us today in regards to managing teams remotely, something that every dealer principal, manager, anyone down the line in a dealership is going to have to really work on and learn as we approach level 3 next week. And we're really excited to announce that next Tuesday we have another seminar set up, and our guests for that are going to be Kate Humble from TradeMe and Mark Greenfield from Motor Central, who will be discussing, I guess, best practice for your listings. We're not really talking about any specialized listings for ways to write your listings in a COVID world, but now is the time when everything you've ever heard, everything you've ever looked at in the past about how to write an engaging and listing that presents the vehicle in the best possible way, that stuff that you may be able to get away with not necessarily following in the past is going to become absolutely crucial. Also, on top of that, it's really going to be a time for tools like feedback on the TradeMe site and other listing websites, and buyer score, the product that Motor Central has, is really going to come into play, because people are going to be looking for ways to verify that the person they're buying a car off, and in many cases they'll be buying that car without any great interaction, is a solid and valued and trustworthy business. So that's going to be a really interesting discussion. That will be next Tuesday at 2 p.m. And if you want to get online for that, then email the email back that you've been getting information about these seminars from. That's deborah@automediagroup.co.nz. So Graham, we might as well kick off. Thank you so much for being here. We're going to go through today how to manage a team and working with the kind of remote technologies that we're doing right now through Zoom and through this YouTube live that we're broadcasting this through as well. I guess the question is, and sorry, I'll just add to that anyone, if you do have any questions through this discussion, please send through the chat function there, send through the chat function on YouTube, or send me an email at richard@automediagroup.co.nz. But continuing on, we're going to work through this technology. I've got a really light question just to kick this off before we get into anything too heavy, Graham, and that's people are working from their bedroom, as you can see here, or from your office there at home. Should they be getting dressed for work? It seems like such a basic question, and it's not really particularly tied on what we're doing for the rest of this, but I just thought it was really interesting that we could start off with.
Well, I've got a nice little video clip coming up in a few seconds, which might answer that question for you quite visually.
Do you want to go ahead on that now, or you want to?
Yeah, what I'd like to do is just say hi to everybody and thanks for joining us. And I think one of the key things that when you're going through change is, and like I've been in this industry for 40 odd years and been in, working in dealerships and managing dealerships and in training for many years now in Australia and New Zealand, particularly, spent some time in the UK and the US. But most of it has always been face to face, and it's always been, in small groups or classroom situations, or working on the floor with salespeople or service advisors as such. And of course, since this situation has happened, those days are basically dead and gone. And whether they'll be dead and gone forever, who will know? But I think in the very near future, the bigger groups and the flying around places to do training is probably going to be limited. So it was a major change for us to start thinking about, how can we now utilize technology, and how can we start to work to give better or continuous support and training to our clients and to people in our industry. And I mentioned very briefly to Richard at the beginning that we've been running these sessions over the last few weeks, and it's been quite amazing, the feedback we've been getting and the engagement and the interaction. So one thing I will say as a tip, if you're getting into this thing for the first time, just relax, okay? So it's not going to work perfectly every time, and people will understand. So I just want you towards to go, it's worth doing, it's worth doing badly. So have a bit of a go of it. And that's the main thing. I think today is for all of us to realize there are different levels of working with teams remotely. If you've got a team that works remotely all the time and has been doing for some time, it's a different level, or it's a different step of the rung of technology and communication and projects and assignments and things like that, compared to maybe things that we're doing now just to protect ourselves through this lockdown, which has been for a few weeks now, and it looks like it's going to be for another few weeks, and probably for a few months. So what I'd like to do is probably give you the foundation of what a standard program looks like, or what a standard operating procedure looks like in establishing a remote team environment. And I've got a PowerPoint which I'm going to click through, and I know death by PowerPoint and such like. But I think if I just go through those principles as we're going through them, it's an opportunity to make a list of some questions, or you may be able to relate to some of the situations you're going through currently. And then when we get to the end of that PowerPoint, I'm going to be more than happy to have a Q&A, and I think that's going to be more important. But at this stage, I'd like to at least give you those key principles to actually establish your remote team management program, if that's okay. So I'm going to go to share the screen.
We promise everyone it's a short PowerPoint.
It's a very short PowerPoint. It'll be so short you're not going to see it. I'm actually seeing your screen.
My screen?
Yeah.
My face?
Your desktop, I think.
No, it's just you were seeing. Ah, there we go.
There you go. So I love it when I can actually demonstrate that if things don't go quite right, is to chill and move on quietly through it. Because at the end of the day, it's not the end of the world. And it's amazing that I was running a session earlier today and doing some things with the dealership group, which I've probably done training with over the last couple of days, probably 80 people in resilience and setting new goals and setting positive triggers and such like. So it would never have happened unless this situation, and getting between two different countries and two different timelines, that's been quite an interesting exercise. So it's a learning curve. Doesn't matter how many times you've done this, it's a learning curve all the time. So what I've done is I've put together this PowerPoint. As I say, it will be short. I'm going to go through it reasonably quickly. But I want to kick off with, be careful of some of the things that happen. So make sure you scratch your ass after the screen's turned off. Is that okay? So that's a good start to any workshop. So what's the outcomes? And we're going to cover some of these in probably a little bit more depth, maybe graze over some, depending upon what's of interest to you. So know the keys to establishing a virtual team, learn how to hold effective meetings and group sessions, learn effective ways to communicate with team members, use tools to build trust and confidence among employees, how to handle poor performing employees, because it's a whole different world when you're dealing with your staff remotely. Know how to manage a virtual team during any project. And let's face it, we've got some projects on our plate right now. So managing change, I think regardless of any processes, whether it be remotely working with virtual teams as we're talking today, or what's going to be your webinar later in the week or next week, and what you covered yesterday or maybe the day before with AutoTalk, everyone's going through change. So I'm going to give you just a couple of little tips on how to manage and deal with change. As a leader, the first thing is you've got to understand the change yourself first. So come to terms with the technology, come to terms with how to make this thing work. Work through the principles that I'm going to lay out on the PowerPoint. There's also, if anybody wants it, I've put together a step-by-step little handout workbook for you, and I'm happy to send that to you if you want to send me an email, and we'll send it through to Richard and he can forward it on to me. I'm happy to send you whatever information you want. So understand the change first yourself. Understand the costs, the benefits, and the opportunities. Work through that, and in some cases, you've got to really involve your team here, get them engaged. The more engaged your team is in developing this, the more they'll feel ownership. It's because when people got ownership, they will work with it. And then you set a plan of action, standard operating procedures, and set clear expectations. And that's when you can sit and talk with your team. So 3 keys: understand the change yourself, understand the cost, benefits, and opportunities yourself, and then set a plan of action, standard operating procedures, and clear expectations that you want. And this might be a horse out of the corral that's already bolted because we've been doing this for a couple of weeks, but you can always go back and re-look at what you're doing so that you can redirect or resharpen any of those tools or any of those strategies that you've got in place. 4 keys to leading your team to change. Explain the change to the team, what you're doing, why you're doing it, and how we're doing it, and get their input in that. Solicit ideas, ask for their opinions, because they're important. Set a plan of action. So what am I going to actually do? How am I going to put this in place? What technology am I going to be using? How it's going to work? And then implement and then evaluate. And in evaluation, always expect setbacks. We've just witnessed one. You're going to get stones hitting the windscreen. You're going to get situations that happen all the time. That's okay. We just got to, if it's worth doing, it's worth doing badly, as I said before. It's worth having a go, because the more you do it, the more you work with this technology and you work with your programs and work with your people, the better and easier and simpler and more effective it will become. So model 1 is setting up your virtual team. Now, working face-to-face with people is one thing because you can see what's going on. And I've noticed in training, we do a lot of reactive training. We find out what they're not doing well and we try and fix it. And what I'm really wanting to try and bring to the world this year is let's get them right first so they know what to do. So we don't have to be keeping checking, catching them doing it wrong. We're just going to promote and work with them doing it right. So make sure your people are self-motivated. And we've got to respect and embrace difference in cultures, different in work styles, diversity, because people will deal with differences, with change. People will deal with technology differently. So we've got to be a bit patient. We've got to have some empathy in how we're building this and putting this together. And we've got to have some experience in technology. And we've got some younger people in our businesses today that are all over it. We've got people that aren't quite so young in our business that aren't all over it and will struggle a little bit. So be patient. Really identify how they learn.
I'll step in there, Graham. It's interesting. I know with our own business, and I'm sure there's others who have experienced the same thing. Is we have some older members of staff who did take some time to adapt to using the new technology since we've had to switch to a work from home environment. But with a little patience and working with them, it's been surprising how well they've adapted to it.
Yeah, it's absolutely critical that we have got to have our patience space on and work with them, because I think we covered this at the beginning and most people would agree. This is not something that's going to go away. We have to just get better at it and coach and guide our people to get better at it. Obviously, if you could do a face-to-face meeting at first, check who's on your team, what skills do they bring. Personalities count as much as skill. If you got negative Ned or negative Nancy in there, if you got someone that's everything's half glass full or half glass empty, so again, we got to work with this because not everyone's going to take to this the same. Just like not everyone takes to this when we're in a face-to-face environment. What training do they require? Things don't change. What's your outcome? What are you hoping to achieve from this? Obviously, from a normal day, which we only remember what normal was, it's a bit different than it is today. It's different in 3 weeks. It'll be different in 6 weeks. We've got to have some flexibility. How will you know when it's working? Have some evidence that it's actually coming together. And build a team culture. It's not every man for himself. It's we're working together on this. And if you can't do a face-to-face meeting, as I say, we can't do that now. So starting,
Zoom meeting.
yeah, if you're starting, you're going to have to do it like this. So module 3 is set clear goals. Have clear objectives and an agenda. Make sure you solicit additional topics before you have your meeting in advance and give them an understanding of what we're going to cover and how we're going to cover it. Be honest and clear. There's no hidden agendas here. We're for the first time ever, it's not someone else that's got the flu. It's not a family member, or it's all of us. We've all got this thing together. So be honest, be clear, and let's work together. Provide timely feedback early and often. People want to know what's going on, and please don't make assumptions that they all know what to do or they're all doing it. Because one of the ways to really finish a meeting or finish a training session is to ask, has anybody got any questions? And that's usually when everyone goes, no, we're good. And then they go outside, and then you get the questions that are asked all the time and throwing things around. Hopefully, at the end of this session, you will have some questions. Write them down as you go. It makes it easier. So module 4 is actually running a meeting. So what we're going to do now is scheduling can be an issue. So it depends on how many people you've got in your team. And if they're locked in at home, remember, they've got kids at home now. They've got family at home, whether it be a husband or a partner or a wife. Okay, and so scheduling may be an issue. Again, we've got to have some flexibility in that. Personalizers, when you go on to the screen, have a bit of humor too. Be interested in what they're doing. Show some interest in, let them be interested in what you're doing. So a little bit of personalization. If anybody wants to know some games you can do and things like that, just let me know. There's plenty on the internet. There's plenty to have a bit of a stroll around and have a look. Some of it's good, some of it's not so good, but at least you've got some resources there. Make sure your meetings are not a status report. No good just putting up a spreadsheet and going through how many cars, this, that, and the other. Make sure it's a little bit more a bit more personal, a bit more interactive. It depends how many people you're talking to. Like, we've got hundreds talking today, so it's impossible to be too personal. But if I'm talking with my team, it might be 4 or 5, and even if it's up to 15, I can be a bit more, get people engaged, get people involved. And if it gets too big, maybe you have to run a couple. Timelines. How long do I run a meeting for? How long do I hold a meeting for? And I'm hearing people doing meetings for 2, 3, 4 hours. It's far too long. 2 hours is absolutely critical. The maximum that people can even be retained. Common research indicates that 45 to 60 minutes is retention, particularly if it's interactive and getting the people on the screen speaking, getting you interacting, and having some short, sharp goals that you're looking to achieve, or some projects that you're working on together. And some guidelines, guidelines like how long will it go for? How many people do I have in the meeting? When people want to speak, if everyone's on the screen, when you're going through a presentation, mute all the participants and then ask questions. Or when you get into the question time, get them to raise their hand and then unmute. So it just makes it simpler and easier to work with. Maybe even record the session if it's not going to be too long. And then you can post it for people that haven't actually been there for whatever reason, sickness or whatever they couldn't attend. They can then replay that back later. And I'm finding that particular tool has been so effective in the last couple of weeks, where not everyone can come onto the session. The session's now video posted, and they can actually review that, and they can go over it, not only because they missed it, but also go over it with their teams. Fabulous, fabulous tool. Module 5 is dealing with poor performance. We talk about it in the day-to-day activities in the old world, is we manage activities because activities beget results. But when you can't see them and you're not with them, you've really got to manage results. You've got to trust that your team is doing the job. They're doing what's going to be done. And I've got to promise you, they're not going to get up at 8 o'clock in the morning and work until 5 o'clock at night, or whatever the times are, 7 o'clock till 6 o'clock. They're going to have managed themselves. They're going to manage what they do more effectively during the day. So manage results, not necessarily activities. Be proactive, not reactive. It's no good shouting at someone. It's engaging with them. It's showing that you are interested and that you care. And check in often, not only just about business, but just how are they doing? How are they going? How's things working there for them? Is there any challenge, anything that you can offer to be able to be maybe of assistance? And then when you're looking at those results, manage the gaps. Look at changing maybe 1 or 2 little things, maybe running a little sidebar training session on some activities or something along those lines. Do a little bit of role play, one-on-one. They're not in the room. They're at home, and you're in your office or wherever you may be at home, and you can do a little role play. Have a bit of fun with it. So it's going to be more exciting than I think most people would have thought, including me, before it all started happening. And if there are gaps in performance challenges, then always refer back to goals and expectations, and make sure we're not being personal because we don't know what they're going through. Let's refer back to goals, expectations, and what we did committed to doing. And then don't be frightened to train. We can train using technology today. We can show a video, we can interact, we can role play, we can do all sorts of things, one-on-one, small groups, and we can talk to 80 people in one day and no one's left the building.
Can I just ask a question there, Graham, just on that last section? You mentioned there that looking at performance and looking at results versus activities. Could people, and how should they deal with the situation if perhaps they have a team member who is fantastic in an in-person in office environment, and you get them into an online environment like we're going to face for sales staff and broader staff members over the coming weeks?
Yeah.
And they're not performing. How do you manage that? I mean, can you judge someone's performance in the long term on the fact that they're not working in that world? And should you be particularly concerned about that at the moment? Because we might go back to more in-person work in the future, but there's the chance we might not.
Yeah, I think that's a good question, because I've got some people that are fantastic face to face, and you pick the phone up and they change into that hello voice and go fall to pieces. I think the challenge you've got is while we have got a condition, it's not an objection here, it's a condition. When we can't go face to face, and you're one-on-one with your team member, that's when you've got to shadow. That's when you've got to shadow them, show them what to do, work with them, role play. And at the end of the day, all you can do is get a slight improvement and a slight improvement, a slight improvement. Because unfortunately, if they're not prepared to change, or they're not prepared to at least have a go at taking on these new skill sets, then it's going to be very difficult for them because this is not going away. But we as a manager have got to really take the time. Maybe we have to, relocate the person into a different role or a different position, but that's another story. I'd certainly be persevering if the let's call him a salesperson or a service advisor is really wanting to learn and keen to learn. I'd spend the time and effort. But it's the old horse to water. If they don't want to drink and they don't want to do things, then you have got a challenge. And unfortunately, this is the world we live in. It's like having someone in your dealership that really loves to sell cars but hasn't got a driver's license and can't drive. as much as you love them, it ain't gonna work.
And do you need to be prepared to change the metric you are judging these people by? I mean, you sales people on the floor in the showroom, it could be simply cars out the door that you may be looking at, but now is perhaps the real time to look at how many leads they are putting through, what their retention is, what should.
Yeah, and I think that
by the same metric.
Yeah, I think that's really, and I wasn't going to in this particular webinar get into the specifics of whether we're selling cars or it's just following up customers or we're just generating leads or we're talking to customers that not trying to sell them, whatever the reason why we're ringing or communicating or emailing. I mean, that's something that each individual dealership has to vary those targets, has to vary those outcomes. That's why I said at the very beginning is you've got to know what you expect and what's reasonable and fair that we can actually achieve at this point in time. That's not to take excuses, because anyone can get below the line and make excuses. It's got to be realistic. And I do say this to a lot of managers, and they hate me for doing it. If you expect your people to do it, you can do it. And I know when I was in sales managers, GSM and general manager, I would still get on that phone. I'd still get on the service line. I'd make sure that I'm working side by side with these guys, because I got to know that my expectation isn't unrealistic. So I hope that answers the question, because it is quite a broad decision to make based on capability and willingness to do it. There's a model which is a great model, which is called the GROW model, which is GROW, which is setting goals, looking at the reality, what's the opportunities and obstacles, and are they willing to do it? And the big one there is willing, because we can do anything. We've got technology, training, and not only us, but you see yourselves who are tuned in, and your dealerships, you've got tons of resources. But if people aren't willing to do it, you're really up against it. So choose the right tools, and that's going to be up to you as an organization. What sort of software you use. Make sure that people understand it, people can use it. Keep it simple. Make sure it's collaborative, that you can communicate. As I mentioned before, maybe record the training sessions so that they can be re-looked at a later stage. And make sure what you've got in place works for you and the team. You know, in our industry, we have lots of different software programs, and they can become quite confusing. So this is our opportunity maybe to consolidate in some way, particularly in this communication remotely. And as I said, keep it simple. If we complicate things, then it's just people just can't retain it. Which brings us to a Q&A. And what I'd like to do now is just open the floor for you, Richard, at this stage, if they've got some questions or anything that they would like me to go through. Hopefully it's not been too brief. I didn't want to get into too much detail because of these different levels. And we could be having a conversation about someone that's got such a much more involved organization than someone that's just got a couple of simple questions. Hence the reason why I want to try and keep it simple. But
Yeah, we've got a question.
Is getting work done through people, but management is developing people through work. So this is an opportunity to develop your people. So I'll just unshare. Is that okay?
Yep, that's fine. Yep. We have a question here from Bryce. He was wanting to ask if you could just go through the grow idea again.
Say again?
The grow concept.
The row concept.
Grow. G-R-O-W.
Oh, grow. Sorry. All I could hear was row.
the joy of
okay. The grow model is a fabulous model for goal setting and managing change. The G is you set some goals. So the G is goals. So goal setting. There's a number of different programs you can use for goal setting. The most common one is probably what they call SMART, which is specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. And that's like an overlay. You can overlay your goals to make sure you tick all those boxes. I use a program which sort of I've evolved myself over a period of time, which is called Value, which is really visualize. Look at where are you actually now? Assess your current situation. VA. L is let go of old beliefs and old habits. Undertake an activity, undertake some action plans, and then evaluate. So there's a couple of different models that's available to actually set those goals. But unless they are specific and measurable and achievable, then sometimes it's like, I want to sell more cars, that's not a goal. I want to get fitter, it's not a goal. I want to lose weight, it's not a goal, because it's too vague. So the R is to make sure that it's realistic. You've got to have a mirror that works. It's no good making excuses or trying to do something that you need so many other people's help. I talk to people all the time. You don't need, we've got a program for our business called BLAST, which is Blended Learning and Support Training. And it's got available all sorts of standard operating procedures and techniques and overcoming objections. And we've made that available to dealerships and they don't go on it. So I can't do much about that. I can't push it down their throats, but they've got to have some realism. If I'm really wanting to do this goal, I'm going to make the effort myself. I don't need my manager to tell me what to do. Your wife, yes, or your wife will do that, but you've got to make some decisions yourself. So you've got to be realistic. Okay, then you've got to look at some opportunities and some obstacles. Don't bite off too much. I'm used to selling 10 cars a month. I want to sell 40 next month. It's not going to work. Although I do say this to people, whether I'm in service or whether I'm in sales, don't wake up in the morning and say, I can't wait to be mediocre today. So whatever the averages are in our industry, and they're going to change probably over the next few months, and the benchmarks, beat it. Always be a little bit ahead of the game, because if you're not the lead dog, the view is the same, I've got to tell you. Okay, and the W is willingness. And you've got to want to do this thing and want to do it when you don't feel like it. I've been talking to some people just recently about a thing they call the 5-second rule. the 5-second rule is when you don't feel like doing something, and a lot of times we don't. We're wired as human beings to go to the ease side, and I've learned to do this 5-second rule. And whenever you feel like not doing something, just go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, change perspective, and get on with it, because it just tricks your brain. Because it's too easy to go, oh, I'll go and have a cup of coffee. I'll just go and have a cigarette. I'll do that tomorrow. Oh, that email, paper from here to there, to there, to there. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, do it. So Grow's a great model. Goal setting, realism, opportunities and obstacles, and are you willing to do it? I hope that answers.
Yeah, hopefully it does. If it doesn't, then please do let us know, Bryce. I'm just going to quickly answer a couple of questions that are aside of this presentation, but that are coming through, so we can carry on and move to the next directly related question. To Jeremy Mulligan, under level 3, can you have people on the yard and open to the public? Now, I don't think either of us are particularly experts in this, but from my understanding currently, you can only have people visit by appointment, so for pre-arranged pickup and collection. However, we are at AutoTalk are actually in the middle of establishing a fairly comprehensive list of what people are doing and what our understanding is of what people will be able to do. And that will be out tomorrow. Of course, if you've read the AutoTalk alert today, you'll understand that the big bugbear for the trade at this point is unless the NZTA changes its mind, you will not be able to first-time register vehicles. So we're hoping that the powers that be via an MIA can work through a solution from that tomorrow. So keep an eye on autotalk.co.nz for those answers. We have a question from Anchor from A Money asking what can finance companies do to help dealers get more leads for themselves? I will answer that a bit more directly in email later, and if anyone else has any ideas for Anchor, his email is actually in the chat function here. Feel free to drop him a very polite line direct with any ideas or any requests that you might have. But I'll come back to you with a few other notes we have on that separately, Anchor. Back to the topic at hand, and I do apologise if I get the pronouncement of this name correct, but Jerome Diak says, using the SMART goal setting system, how do you feel we should set goals independently in regards to the current climate and an inability to communicate face to face?
Well, it's exactly the same as what we said before, is in consultation and the rules that we're allowed to work with. I'd be setting some goals for me personally. I'd be just communicating with customers and reaching out to them. And a session I did just recently was send out 5 thank you notes to people that you know, people you may have sold a car to, just showing concern, just showing some consideration, putting your name out there in front of them, just saying, we're in a tough time here, but I thought about you the other day. I know you're not traveling in the car very much anymore, but I just thought I'd say hi and how's things going, and love to keep in contact with you a little bit further down the track. So I think for me, I'd be setting goals of contacts and taking their temperature. Are they hot? Are they warm? Are they cool? I'd consider that most people you're going to speak to, I wouldn't create a judgment. I'd just make that personal call and say hi. And I'd probably start with people that bought a car 3 years ago or 4 years ago and work back towards today. And the other thing is, I'd probably look at creating some sort of referral program that when things do start to get on stream again, your existing customers, if they do have friends that are interested in buying a car, that they contact you, and you'll have a referral reward of some description as an existing customer, and maybe some other sort of incentive to encourage them to come back in and speak to you.
I'll ask a question here. We're discussing how to manage teams through this virtual meetings and technology. I mean, do you need to lay the groundwork for how your team should be interacting with your customers through this kind of technology? Is that something to be shaped, or should some trust be put with those staff that they're going to do it appropriately?
No, that's all part of making that plan at the very beginning, is understand what the changes and what they're going to go through. Those standard operating procedures is what are they actually doing in those lockdowns? What is the strategies? And this is where it comes back to the very beginning, is what's the manager's outcomes? What do they want the salesperson to actually, or the service advisor, or whoever the person, I'm only talking sort of more front line here, but more of a business managers and things like that. What do they want them to actually do? What do they want them to achieve? And I can't, I can give you a broad brush type of comment, but I'm not working specifically in your dealership or in your town or know your staff. So that's something that from a management point of view and the team point of view in those brainstorming sessions, you can really come up with some good strategies. And what I'm finding now that I'm getting lots of input from different people asking me to give some help with those sort of things and putting in some training programs and putting in some follow-up and some little webinar type things personalized to different dealerships that are going to be flexible, because as we move further down the track, it's going to open up. So we might make a decision to do something this week and we can change it next week and change it the week after. This is a moving target. This is not something we can say, those of you in sales on here, that we have a road to the sale, and how can you meet and greet people out there? It just doesn't work. So we have to be flexible. And if we're flexible and we're motivated, we'll come through this real strong, I promise you.
So I guess what you're talking about today is from that is you're not necessarily here to tell people what the new road to a sale is going to be under this COVID-19. You're discussing how people can work with their team to develop and establish and push through what that will be in their specific situation.
Yeah, I'm probably at meet and greet here. I'm probably making connections with you, Pete, keeping those lines of communication open. One of the hardest things that I see, and if I can talk sales just for a moment,
please do.
the hardest things I see over the years is when companies do mystery shops. The worst performing part of a mystery shop is follow-up, is communicating with customers, because we're so busy moving on to next. Now, there is limited next now. So this is a huge opportunity to fine tune and hone those skills in how to make contact, how to make connections with people, how to tell stories, how to get people engaged with you and your organization. So when things do free up, you're going to be on their shopping list. They're going to talk to their friends. Facebook and all those sort of community things are going on. They're going wild at the moment. They were pretty wild anyway, but they're going even more. They're even got an old fat like me having a go at it. I actually did a quick video the other day and put it on Facebook. My goodness, Facebook and me. I've got a face for radio. But anyway, I said to them, send out 5 thank you notes just to people that you haven't seen for ages, or family members, or just say thanks for being there, or just being who you are. I've got communication from people from years ago and family members who live in the UK, and it's been incredible. So this time is just incredible for getting those connections and creating those links and those opportunities that's going to come. And you are going to get some things on the way through, no doubt about it. Don't think you're not going to sell or service a car. As soon as you've got those opportunities, you will. It'll be there, but we're going to be ready. We've got to be ready to go. One of the programs I mentioned earlier, we've got some little workshops on there for you to do. If anybody's interested, just let me know. It's complimentary. While we're all going through this, I'll do my bit and Shelley, my wife, as much as we can. It's called CRAFT, it's career, recreation, and family together. It's got a whole range of different workshops and training modules and different things that you can go on and keep your skills. I think I mentioned earlier, it's not about checking what you've done, it's about getting better at what you do. This is an opportunity. This is such an opportunity for you to fine tune those skills and make those connections and get really ready. I'm really excited about this. I think this is an opportunity for all of us to just change our lives.
I think it's interesting, and it's something we saw through the earlier session we held earlier in the week with the Auto Plan Mark Group team, and I think it's something we're going to see next week with Trade Me. This is a real chance for companies out there to really embrace a lot of the stuff that they've looked at and done, but got not pushed to the right level in regards to communications and process over the years, because it's going to become incredibly crucial now. We've got one more question here on the list, and this is again more tapping into your sales side rather than the topic of today, but I still think it's worth asking. And it's also a question, Gary Critchie, that I'll put to the team we've got coming in on Tuesday to discuss, because this is in their ballpark as well. But you may have a thought on this. A lot of the ways that people will be selling now, and I know we saw Mitsubishi Motors and a few other companies this week put out pretty detailed information on what they're going to do in their yards, will be through sending videos to customers of vehicles or video calls like this with customers around vehicles. Do you have a thought on how long those communications should be, how long those videos that are being sent to customers should be?
Yeah, depends if it's been solicited or it's unsolicited. If someone's rung in or come into the dealership in the old world, and you've done a presentation or you've done a test drive and they leave the premises and they didn't buy, then I would send them a 2-minute clip, and I would quickly personalize it, make sure it's about them, their names is mentioned, and you're going to point the key things that was important to them, the key hot points or hot bullet points or hot buttons that they were looking at, the things that were interesting to them. I think today a video of 2 to 3 minutes maximum is about as much as people get to the point. And that's what we try to do with any of our training videos and things that we do is 2 to 3 minutes. More than that, people are mowing the grass. So that's what I'd be suggesting. But make it personal, and don't be frightened to improve your skills in taking those videos. Get a gimbal. Be able to do it. Be able to learn how to put some music behind it. Make it really, really fantastic. I spent some time last year doing some work with some managements in the New Zealand dealership, and they video the early part of it, they video between the sale and the delivery, and they video the delivery, and then they give that post to go up on Facebook for the customer if they want it. But fabulous for generating referral business, repeat business, and leaving customers with a good feel. It's a good feeling, and whether they buy or whether they don't, I send them a video and say, hey, thanks for coming in, and just wanted to recap on a couple of things. And if they bought the car, I'll say, oh, you should see it. It's coming together really well. Have some fun. Put the sheet over it and say, I'm not showing you till you come in, but I tell you what, it's ready. Some people have nicknames for their cars. Call it by nicknames. My wife bought a car years ago, and she called it Stella, and it was being manufactured over in Europe a few years ago now. And I got the sales manager. I said, every now and then, just send a little text saying, hi, it's Stella here. Just let you know I'm going into the paint shop. Looking forward to getting on the boat. And we had these little fun stories on the way through. She ended up getting key rings. But it just because it was a 3-month build, back in them days. So yeah, you've got to have fun with it. You've got to treat your people like they're real. Before they buy, now they bought, and definitely after they bought. You've got to value them just as much, if not more, after they bought a car or after they've serviced a car.
I have a bit of an adage that I like, it goes around these days, which is, this meeting could have been a phone call, this phone call could have been an email, this email could have been a text. Face-to-face interaction with customers and with staff these days, that arguably, a meeting could become a phone call, but which of those meetings that could become phone calls should actually be meetings, in this case, that should become video calls or video meetings, as opposed to just cutting straight to a phone call? Because a lot of what we're doing now with video could be done arguably over the phone, but what does doing it on video add?
Well, I think when you're looking at the way people process information, it's called a representational system. That's a visual, auditory, kinesthetic. And what happens is when you're on the phone, people are still in kinesthetic and they're still in visual. So based on your voice, your tone, your pace, they're forming pictures of who you are, what the dealership is, and the type of service they're going to get from you. If you can translate that and put that more into visual and kinesthetic, so get the feeling into it and getting the visual into it, you've now improved your chances of communicating with those people, threefold. Words are 7%, tones 38%, and visual body language is 55% of the communication. You've just increased your opportunity. You've really increased your opportunity, and it does take a bit of time. It can be, if you're really in those busy times, it feels like I haven't got time to do that. But sometimes we form an opinion of the customer, we think they're wasting our time. They're not. They didn't ring up to buy a burger. They might be able to next week, but they can't this week. So the thing is that if they're ringing you or they're communicating with you, I would go the extra mile, and I would say, I'm going to send you a little link to, so you can have a look at the car, maybe look at 1 or 2 options, and introduce myself. You mentioned to me about this particular feature. I'm going to demonstrate it for you so you can have a look. Beautiful. And save it and keep it there. And you can send that as a montage later on. You can actually storyboard their whole selling process, delivery process. That can go where? Not social blackmail, social media. That's going to work for you.
going back to staff management, and just if the people who are listening, if there's any more questions, now's the time to get them through, because we will be about to wrap up. But going back to staff management, how in this world where you can't sit down with a staff member, if things are going wrong, as we've discussed, that you might identify someone who's not working right, how do you rectify a situation with a staff member when you can't sit down to them face to face, where you can't have a straight out meeting to resolve these things? It's quite a delicate part of staff management, those kinds of correction aspects.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest problems is what's caused that problem or that issue. And a lot of times I identify that we either get personal with it, or we don't understand, or it's not something that can be fixed. It could be some sort of emotional problem or some family problem. It might be a counseling situation that's going to be above and beyond anything that we should be getting ourselves involved in as a manager or as a general manager or a DP, really. Because we've got professionals to do that. But one of the key things that I talk to everybody before, when someone joins the company and when they come into that induction, you've got to have an induction. And if you haven't had one with current staff, re-induct and go back and have some standard operating procedures. Make sure they know what to do and why they do it and how they do it. Give them input, give them feedback, and have those standards and check in regularly. Check in that things are going okay. Don't leave it for I have people ringing me, dealers ringing me saying, "Oh, can you come and see Billy?" I said, "What's the matter?" So Billy, he's having a terrible time. So what's happened? Well, he sold 5 last month. He's on 3 for this one. I'm going, it's week 3 in month 2. That's 7 weeks that this lad or this person, whether it be a male or a female, has been struggling. And I know from sales, if as a salesperson, when I was a salesperson, if I'd gone 3 days without selling a car, and I was looking in the paper, I was ready to slash my wrists. So we've got to have standard operating procedures. They've got to feel that it's safe to talk to you. You've got to be on top of it. Don't be reactive, be proactive, and help them through those programs. Help them through those steps. Well, we do a skills audit all the time. So we look at sales process, handling internet inquiries, making outbound phone calls, taking inbound phone calls. And we break it down into the steps or little standard operating procedures, what to do, why you do it, how you do it, and then we just practice those. And we can rate those 1 to 4. 1 is they don't do it right ever. 4 is they always do it right. You get them to rate themselves, you rate them, and you can work on that. Because anything with poor performance can be fixed early. You leave it too long, it becomes that norm, and then it's very difficult. And one of the challenges anybody's got in our industry, we let someone get away with or allow them to be mediocre for too long a time. You reset the bar in the whole organization. You don't want to do that. You want to make sure that you are a safe harbor for them to come to, but recognize what the issues are, have some standard operating procedures, and work with them to help them get. At the end of the day, if the horse is dead, you've got to get off it, but you've got to give them a chance first.
Fantastic. Look, thank you so much for joining us here today. I hope everyone's taken something really valuable from this. Now, Deborah, our manager who's been handling all this, will be sending out your workbook to everyone, and also the link to this video should they want to share it with other staff. Graham, thank you very much for talking to us today. What's the best way for people to get in touch with you if you'd like them to?
Okay, well, if anybody is keen to maybe follow through with either the workbook or maybe a copy of the PowerPoint, if you want a copy of the PowerPoint, you can just email me on Graham, which is Graham, at gtetraining.com. That's Graham at gtetraining.com, or my mobile phone, which is 04. No, it's not. That's the Australian one. The New Zealand one is 02. I'm going to try and remember what it is now. 02. I've just gone blank on it because
we'll send it out in the email.
021 246 8885. 021 246 8885. I really love it when I do these things and cock it up at the beginning and cock it up at the end. And maybe some of you thought I'd cock it up in the middle as well. Who knows?
No worries. Look, as I said, thank you everyone for joining us, and we hopefully look forward to seeing you at the session on Tuesday with the team from Trade Me and Motor Central discussing writing those perfect leads to get those people into your yards. Thank you so much.
And thanks from me too. Thank you for taking the time, and all the very best through this difficult time. And let's make sure 2020 turns around and we end up finishing it really strong. We can do it.